Hello, it's the end of another beautiful week. Welcome to Newsweek on Love Plus. My name is Gimalo Angel Ologoke.
And I am Itohan Olomu. Welcome to Newsweek.
Now, Newsweek is a program that gives you major headlines of happenings in the week, followed by in-depth analysis.
Our topics for today include Ebola experimental vaccine, drug trafficking in Indonesia, calls to shift Nigeria's polls, petrol price reduction, attack on President Goodluck Jonathan's convoy, and our punchline, the Buhari certificate saga.
Wow, that's quite a bunch we have there. We'll take a short break now and be back shortly. Don't go away.
Whether it's politics in Capitol Hill or the ASU Villa, national uprising, revolution, annual independence celebration, entertainment or sports, there is business in everything. Business is the heart of life's activities. So join me as we take a look at the inside story, developing stories, and business news behind the news on Global Business Today on this station.
Welcome back. And now it's not just Itohan and I here. We have a guest who is a public affairs analyst to scrutinize these issues with us. He is Mr. Sunday Odibashi. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great privilege.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Itohan will take us to the first story.
The first batch of an experimental vaccine against Ebola is on its way to Liberia. The shipment will be the first potentially preventive medicine to reach one of the hardest hit countries. But experts say that with Ebola cases falling, it may be difficult to establish whether the jab offers any protection against the virus. It has been produced by British company I'll take that again. It has been produced by British company GlaxoSmithKline and the U.S. National Institute of Health. Sorry, I want to take that line again. It has been produced by British company GlaxoSmithKline and the U.S. National Institute of Health.
Don't sign.
It could actually be said to be a welcome development, but again, the timing, because it was a kind of tragedy in the West African sub-region, and they needed help. They didn't get it on time. Apart from the international medical doctors who came, and some of them were also affected, some taken back to their home countries, treated, and came back. The few didn't survive it. But again, I think the timing, the intervention was quite very late. Very, very late.
It was late, but I think they actually started the quarantine measures, the isolation and all that on time while they were trying to get these vaccines. So did you think they
No. They were doing the quarantine method, but that was after it worked in Nigeria.
Okay.
They didn't start with the quarantine in Sierra
Okay,
Leone.
in other African countries?
They
Okay, they were not doing that.
No, they were not doing that.
Okay, so
and that was why it was difficult for them to control.
Yes.
You remember a community, I think in Liberia, when they said don't move.
Yes.
And they were saying, no, can't
these
be.
are loved ones.
Say we can't. Why should you, keep on in isolation? They wanted to, relate with others. So it was difficult there. But here in Nigeria, it was a good intervention measure that worked in Nigeria. But even while they were doing that, because people were still dying in Sierra Leone, Liberia.
Yes.
Now, those who contracted the virus, in US, France, and I think
there was a case in the UK too.
in UK,
Yes.
they flew them back to their country, treated them with the same vaccine, and they recovered.
Okay.
So why was there no intervention at that level to say we're going to test the
Africa?
vaccine in Africa?
Okay, aside from that, What can you say about the reduction of the disease? What can you attribute to be the reason for the reduction of the Ebola virus disease?
Well, you know, the whole government of those countries affected, they have been trying so many ways to bring the virus, you know, the infection, you know, the spread under control.
Yes.
And more importantly, it's also a virus that they said it has its own lifespan.
Okay.
Yeah, it has its own lifespan. So if you're able to control the victim and attend to that victim with certain measures within a space of time, you know, so if the virus could not overcome within that period, so the virus dies.
Okay.
And the victim survives, even without the vaccine.
Okay, okay. So it's just like something like the sickle cell. If you can attain a certain age, then you...
Yeah, like I'm not a medical doctor per se, but like the medical doctor says...
But it has to do with hygiene here.
Yeah, one is hygiene, then two, symptom. For instance, I could...
Start treating the symptoms.
Yeah, you treat the symptom. For instance, if one is vomiting and all those things constantly and stooling, so the spillover effect is that you're going to have dehydration.
Yes.
Very rapid dehydration.
Yes.
So what some doctors have argued is that while that is going on, you continue to inject fluid
into the system.
into the system.
Okay.
And if that is sustained for the number of days, you know, the victim survives and the virus dies.
Okay.
So perhaps they have done that, you know, even the foreign medical expert that came, you know, administered all kinds of treatment and all those things. So I think that is what also helped, you know, the victims to survive and enable them to bring the spread under control. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's great for Africa there, really great.
Yeah.
Now, we move to the next story now. The Nigerian government has appealed to the Indonesian government to show clemency for 12 Nigerians convicted of drug crimes in that country. The Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Danjuma Sheni, told newsmen after an audience with the acting Indonesian ambassador, Eko Indiato, who was invited for discussions. Meanwhile, Brazil and Netherlands have recalled their ambassadors to Indonesia after the island nation executed 5 foreigners and an Indonesian woman on drug trafficking charges. Now, Amnesty International has condemned executions as a retrograde step. So, Mr. Odibashi, what's your opinion on the death penalty, especially as it regards to drug trafficking? Now, is it justifiable? You know, now Brazil and Netherlands, yes, it's drug trafficking, yeah, we know. Yeah. It's not good. Indonesia has said, this is how we want it. Don't do it. If you do it, it's death. But is death the solution?
No, that is their own law.
That is their own law.
That is their own law.
Is that the solution? Because it's been there, and people are still doing it, and they're still executing, and people are still doing it.
Even the international community has been condemning the penalty for a long time.
Yeah. You see, you don't have, everybody will not have same therapy to a disease.
Okay.
You know, especially a social disease. So, measures to bring certain social vices under control differ from country to country.
Okay.
In the Asian countries, especially in the Islamic world, they don't compromise. Their own is death.
Strict. Very
and the nature of their law, like here in Nigeria, for instance, they will say you are assumed guilty until... But there, the moment you are accused, you are already guilty.
Until
that is their own law. You know, so remember the case of the Istanbul Tochi in 2007.
Okay.
You know, for a very long period, the case dragged for about 3 years, but the Nigerian government was very silent. So I also think that the problem with the Nigerian victims is that we have a government that have a very poor foreign policy.
Okay. But they, you know, they were already pleading on behalf of these men, and they were still executed. And now they're still pleading on behalf of the 12 men, and we don't know if the next thing we'll hear is
the point is this, because the 2007 experience was very clear to some of us. When the case started, there was outcry that Nigerian government should intervene. Even when the media, you know, started the campaign, nobody. And I could remember some of my friends in CLO, Civil Rights Organization, they wrote to National Assembly. There was no reaction, no response.
Okay.
So the government neglected the whole thing until that boy was sentenced to death. And the moment they sentenced to death, you have very minimal opportunity to save that life. So that very particular instance, that boy was sentenced to death. The Nigerian government did not still respond until the lawyer to the boy in Singapore have to come to Nigeria after he has been to Canada and the US and got support from Canada in particular, before he came to Nigeria, before the Nigerian government could wake up.
Okay, so what we are saying is that our government kind of have a slow response to things like
Not only slow, very poor foreign policy to protect our citizens in foreign lands.
So are you
So
saying
that is
now in this case, there's more, it's like we're more proactive now than before?
Now,
Because the ambassador now is calling the...
now they have sentenced these people to death. Now, as at the time the trial was on, that was when the Nigerian government ought to intervene and said, okay, we know the nature of your law, we are not compromising. Okay, can we shift these people? We also have similar laws.
So we will deal with them here.
Yeah, extra, because I know that is what...
And we'll deal with them here,
No,
really.
of course, yeah, that is what the United States government does.
Yes.
Okay.
Israel does
with the same Indonesia?
No, with several
foreign
countries.
countries.
They don't
Okay,
joke
so
with their-
you bring them
Yeah,
back.
they don't joke with their
Extradite the
citizens.
criminals.
Okay.
Anywhere, you are no matter
So
the
we
offense.
responded slowly.
Very slowly.
Okay, now these 12, they're on trial right now, so
No, they'll be convicted already.
So
Have they
So-
exhausted all options of appeal? Is there no room for appeal? Or
The only thing remaining now is just to apply that diplomacy. Just like Canada has responded, recalling their...
okay, that's
ambassador.
Brazil and Netherlands.
And
And Australia is planning to do the same.
Same
to do
thing.
the same, yes.
Yes.
So if they can apply very stringent diplomatic measures, that might save them.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, okay. Well, so the Nigerians, should they be pardoned, or what punishment
The
could be given?
government must first of all save their life.
Okay.
They must first of all save their life. Now, after they have saved their life, before they now begin to think of the punishment.
But
Yeah, of course they can. What's it called? Drug trafficking is not an acceptable practice in
Anywhere.
Nigeria.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they could still go to prison.
We have laws, yes. We
You
have
know,
laws
they could still go to
that
prison,
stipulate punishments
life imprisonment or whatever. It could be 10 years, 5 years, depending on the magnitude of
of the offense.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Another story. The National Security Advisor, Sambu Dasuki in London, has suggested the postponement of this year's national elections by 3 months to enable the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, distribute the permanent voters' cards, PVCs, to about 30 million Nigerians who are yet to obtain the cards. There have been technical hitches in data collection, while election officials have not explained how they will conduct elections in parts of the northeast gripped by violent uprising by Islamic Boko Haram group. Dasuki further said Jega had assured that it would achieve this in time for the February date, but Dasuki thought it would make more sense to take more time and that there was a 90-day window during which the election could legally take place. It cost INEC nothing. That's Dasuki still talking, and he said it's still within the law, adding that it was, however, for INEC and not for him to decide. So,
Yeah.
this scenario.
Yeah, he has expressed his opinion.
That's
Yes.
his opinion.
Yeah, that is his opinion, personal opinion.
But it's generating controversy that PDP.
Yeah, because it's part of the government.
And
So, the moment you are on one side, the other side see you as saying the mind of every other person.
okay.
But he has also expressed his opinion.
His opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, so in that regard, what's your own opinion
No,
concerning
because even
postponement?
Bakare himself also said the same thing not quite long.
So your opinion. on it.
Yeah.
That should be postponed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the truth of the matter is that the INEC is actually ill-prepared for the elections.
Okay.
Let's be very, very fair. If we watch the distribution of the PVCs,
Okay.
how the thing has gone and all those things, it was because the president said every registered voter must have his card. Otherwise, they would have closed the distribution by now. Because officially they have. But when the president ordered, that was that they now extended the period to say January 31st.
Okay.
This is not something, distribution of this PVC is not something you just wake up and you say you're going to do it in 2 weeks. In the 36 states of the Federation. When you are dealing with a population of 68.8 million. So what magic are you going to perform? You are doing it during the period that people are, sometimes they are not around, they go to work and all those things. So this is something that's supposed to spread over time.
Okay.
So, yeah, but again, the INEC chairman also had a thought that because of some of the problems they had in previous elections, that it was wise to at least have the elections conducted earlier so that they would have exhausted all the court cases before the inauguration of the winners.
Okay.
So that was his original idea of bringing it to February. But now we have this crisis that these things have not been effectively, distributed. People are having problems. If you go to some places, either you don't see the next staff, or they will tell you they have moved the materials to another location. So people keep wondering, because these are the reports, coming from the field. So if you look at it from that angle, then Dasuki may be right. Because he will not, in the process of trying to save what you have also not determined, and cause more chaos and monumental conflict.
Okay, now that's in the aspect of PVCs and INEC's preparation. But looking at the security aspect of it, the northeast, Borno, Adamawa, Yobe, what do you think?
Yeah, that northeast case is a very critical.
Yes.
It's a critical factor because if there's no security, even when INEC says elections will hold, it's either you don't come out or you come out and somebody is shooting you down. So it's already a very serious.
Even describing it as shooting is even mild. Bomb, it can just come from
knock life out of you.
People queuing up.
So it's a very volatile zone. But which terrorism is not something you just wake up, you say you are ending it tomorrow.
Yes.
It has never achieved that kind of result has never been achieved in any country. Except the terrorists are not there. Okay. But if it is this tactics of hit and run, it's something that does not end, not even within a year. So they have to be cautious.
They have to be cautious. Yeah. I will feel, even if, like you said, if INEC says, okay, we are going to conduct elections in those parts, what about the staff of INEC, those youth corps that will also be deployed to work? They are all staff. How can we guarantee their security too?
Yeah.
And that will now lead us to the aspect of post-elections. Don't you think this not conducting elections in those areas would also open a floodgate of litigation? People say I've been disenfranchised, I couldn't vote. So, and again, there's also a provision in the Constitution, I think that's...
Yeah, it's also a critical factor. But again, I've heard people say that if elections do not hold in those 3 states, that whatever is the result may not be legal. I've actually not really discovered the section of the Constitution that stipulates that. Okay. But I'm also aware that the Constitution also stipulates that when you win majority, you also win 2/3 states of the federation.
Of the state, 25% of 2/3 of the 36 states, including Abuja.
Yeah, and 2/3 of 36 will give you about 24 states. Yes. So I think winning 24 states election.
Are they trying to exempt these states now? Or
so even if they exclude those states, it's still possible for you to
How many states are we talking about here?
So it's still possible.
Okay, we are going to have the 24 states like you said in your analysis. Okay, but what about I as an individual? I'm from Borno State. I come out and say, I really wanted to vote, but because of this security issue, can I not contest the validity of the election?
There is no section of the Constitution that says you must vote. Because even when there's no crisis, it is not all registered voters that come out to vote. Yeah. So we have that history.
Yes.
Yeah. So if somebody comes and says he had intention to vote, and somehow, it's a little mischievous. Because when there is normalcy, not everybody that registered comes out to vote.
But I had the intention of voting and I couldn't vote. So
you may deliberately not want to. But just for the sake of mischief,